Hello and welcome to another episode of My Neighbor's Hot Tub. I am your host, Tristen Lee. Today with me I have my very good friend, Katy Niemeyer. She is always a lot of fun to talk with, so let's dive in. One that I saw him wearing. But he's fucking clever. Like, he knows how to open. Let me tell you what he...
Which is weird, because he, on the outside, seems very stupid.
Oh, yeah, that's his trick. He looks like a dumb cat.
Like he's
just
a dumb cat.
Fluff, purring purr ball.
And he's... Ow!
But then he fucking fights.
Fucker?
Then he knows... he knows kung
Back
fu.
off,
He knows combat.
bitch. Oh, you think you can fight? Ah! Suck a bag.
But no, like, let me tell you what he
Sorry
did to
about
me.
those. I'm coughing. Not in the mic, but it sounds like it.
That's all right. Some people like that. What? We talk about
I
ASMR.
don't want to be in porn.
You're not in porn. It's just ASMR. It's
I may
porn
not
for blind
it's
people.
like I might not produce porn, but people will make it porn.
No, this is what happened, right? I had to wake up early.
Want a rematch, bitch? He just stared me down from the floor.
He's just like, you thought we were friends.
That's my ass. Ow, you fuck.
He's gonna put another crack in it, is what he's gonna do.
No, he's gonna puncture it. It already hurts.
He made an enemy.
I took care of you. I've known you since you were a baby. Shitty teenagers.
Trip Hazard, the great derailer of
Get out of here.
podcasts.
He doesn't deserve an honorific. You fucker. Get
Stop fighting with him. Fucking
no,
stop. Or here, better
I
yet.
don't want to be the loser.
Better. Well,
That would make me a quitter.
No. Here's what you do. You take the duster, and you wave it away from you, and he'll go after it.
Oh,
Because
okay.
he thinks it's Big Bird.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's Mariah's couch.
Yeah.
Oh, she
My
said that
couch now.
she said there's a box of stuff she brought over and she wants me to dig through it. At least she made it to Canada. She almost didn't.
And then she gets there, she's like, I immediately regret my decision.
Yeah, she's like, I immediately hate it here. She's like, I fucking hate it here.
Because
Like,
there's no freedom. No.
Fine, I'll keep playing. Jesus. I'll drink tea with my other hand.
There you go. Fuck, where were we? Oh, yeah, no,
I don't know.
this is what he was doing to me. I had to get up early for work, and he comes in. He knows how to open doors. He figures out a way how to open doors. I don't know, hinges the lock, picks it, whatever. But he gets into my room.
Oh no.
And I'm laying there, and he starts doing that cute thing where his paw, he's tapping me on the shoulder.
You like, hey there.
Like, time to get up, and then he fucking hits me in the face, and I whip, and he has that giant big eyes, oh fuck, what have I done? And I was like, what do you want? He's like, what's the Wi-Fi password? I was like, why? He's like, I'm trying to join Scientology.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm getting him put down.
See, that's nicer because my cat woke me up at 3:30 this morning because she sleeps right next to my head going, and I immediately get up and go, no! So I try to make her throw up on the towel she lays on. I'm like, no, that's stupid. And then I put her on a mat to throw up on there so it'd be easier to clean up. And then she stopped. And I'm like,
It's coming either way.
well, she stopped gagging. So I'm like, are you good? Okay. And then she got really needy after that. So I had to hold her and pet her for an hour. Or she'd not leave me alone.
Poor Freya.
Poor Freya.
Still hates riding in cars too, doesn't she?
Oh my god, yeah. And I have medication to make her high and shit, but she hates that.
God damn.
Yeah, so I just put her in her little pop-up cage and I cover it so she can't see, and then I put catnip in there and just ignore her.
She likes catnip though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He could give a shit about
I
catnip.
used to give him catnip all the time, but his eyes would get huge and he'd get zoomies, so I stopped doing that. My cat gets huge eyes and just lays there. Yeah, I remember you. Lived at my house for a week. Fucking sucked.
Is that before Freya?
Yeah.
That was.
He was my tester.
That's right.
To see if I could handle a cat. And I'm like, okay.
That's right.
So I need to safeguard my plants and my twinkle lights in my bedroom because he chewed on them and he jumped on my altar. And I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna knock shit over. Mm-hmm. She shows up, not interested in any of that shit.
Almost like the perfect fit.
Yeah. The only, like, she's honestly perfect for me because I'm like, I got a ton of plants. She doesn't care about them. He kept jumping up there and trying to eat them.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't chew on my twinkle lights. She just sits there and stares at them. And she never jumps on things. She tried jumping on, I think, in my living room. She tried thinking, she thought there was a ledge there. So she jumped up, hit the window, and fell.
I saw that there was this video on TikTok where this guy had removed his couch they were moving, and he had a blind dog, and the dog was just used to the way things were that he like jumped, but like where the couch used to be, and he just nosedived right into the wall, and he's like, oh, like you could see it afterwards. He was like, oh fuck, man, that's a bad couch.
No, she only jumps onto my bed. She never goes on the couch.
Really?
She never goes on the couch. She goes on the love seat on that, either on the armrest or she goes on the little towel I put up there. On her bed, on my chaise lounge thing by the door.
Mm-hmm.
Or she'll like lay in my bed, in my bedroom, but she'll sit on the dining room table to look out the window. Or she'll jump off of her litter box onto that bookshelf I have under that window in my bedroom.
Oh.
Otherwise, she's just cool on the floor.
Does she ever fuck with your fish?
No.
The tank or
what
anything?
she does, though, is if I'm feeding it or cleaning it, that's when she'll get onto the couch and stare at it with me like, hey, we're both looking at this?
Yeah.
And I'll turn around and go, oh, you're looking at Barry too? Cool. It's short for Huckleberry because he's blue.
Oh, that's your fish's name.
Yes, my mom named him.
I like that.
So he's Barry.
Oh, David
And he's still
Schwimmer.
alive.
Yeah.
Because I came a week after you fed him, too. No, 2 weeks after you fed him.
And he was still good. I didn't even throw a whole lot in there either.
No, that feeder only lasts a week. And I'm like, well, that's a week after the feeder runs out, but they can go 14 days without eating.
Wow.
Mm.
I wish I could do that.
I feed him like every couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I had a goldfish when I was like a really little kid and I still lived in the cities. And I was mistaken. I was just like, I thought the fish needed to be fed as much as I did. So I like would feed it
3 meals a day?
3 meals a day. And I killed it.
Because they'll eat until their stomach explodes.
Yeah, just like people. Just like fucking people. I see it all the time. And I'm like, that's why my New Year's resolution is get actually in shape.
I'll say my Prozac, it's curved my my appetite.
Like your appetite.
So I got from Schwann's these pot stickers or whatever.
Oh fuck yeah.
And it's a big bag, but they come in like serving sizes of 4, like in smaller packs. I'll just eat one of those, like 4 of them, and I'm done.
That's not bad.
And they're good.
Yeah.
I've been putting them in my air fryer, a little bit of oil, so it fries them up.
I fucking love my air fryer.
I fucking love my air fryer. That's the
Those
one
things are
white thing. I'm like,
fucking
I'll claim it.
Dude.
Basic bitch thing. I love my air fryer because that means I can't remember the last time I turned on my oven.
Right?
No.
I only had to do it yesterday because the
and it heats
pizza I
up
made was
so
too
fast.
fucking big.
Like, it doesn't take that long. Also, I can put a DiGiorno's mini pizza in there.
Right?
Just whole. Just boom. And then it's done in like 15 minutes. I'm like, hell yeah.
I like the size of mine. It's funny. Like I acquired it because Matt, him and his ex had broken up. She left a bunch of stuff at their old apartment, and we had to go. It was right before like they closed everything out, whatever. And we were like moving everything out, and she just left an air fryer there. And Matt's like, "You want an air fryer?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, we'll take an air fryer."
I would never leave that behind. That my crock pot.
I finally used the the pressure cooker.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out how to do the rice in it.
There you go.
I had it that whole time, and I was just like, I just couldn't figure it out. I was like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? My problem when I was making rice the traditional way is I would always want to look and see if it was done, because I've had it where I've overcooked it.
Yeah.
And it got all fucked up.
Well, at that point, it's just porridge.
Yeah. Actually, I was watching it with you where we watched how to make rice pudding.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like
you just boil it forever.
Yeah, the affordable way to make creme brulee, or it was like a rice pudding. Technically, I've made creme brulee. I want to do that shit again.
Yeah,
that fucking rocked. Like I was never a baker. I never did. I
want to make a souffle.
That'd be fun to do. I'd be really excited to try like different things. That's the other hallmark of like what I want to do. I want to like learn how to like
feed
myself. And like I made a shitload of rice and I was like, fuck yeah. Like, so I meal prepped for like the first time in my adult life where like I cooked chicken, cooked some like vegetables, and then had a bunch of that rice. And I was
it's weird listening to people like grown ass adults say that. I'm like, I was raised to be a housewife. I've been doing that shit since I was 12.
See, we didn't have a good enough, my mom will say this, like we never had like a good enough kitchen that's spacious enough to have like more than like 2 people in there at a time. So it was always really hard for like her to show how to like meal prep or how to do any of that stuff.
Well, I was just expected to not only feed my future husband and my children, but also like my male family members and to be a hostess.
Yeah,
so
with the mostest.
Like, yeah. So between like, even before I turned 12, I was feeding my younger siblings and like making dinner before my parents got home and stuff. And then meal prepping, like on Sundays, I like ground a bunch of hamburger meat or venison and whatever, and I put it in those Cool Whip containers because who needs to buy Tupperware when you have that?
I love
and then just put them in the freezer, so if I need like to ground hamburger, I could just take it out and just warm it up. Same thing with soups.
The Joe Coy bit where he talks about how he would have like in a Cool Whip container, and then he showed up to lunch, and people were like, "Oh shit, he's just gonna eat Cool Whip."
He's like,
opens it up, and it's like
some Filipino dish.
Yeah, Filipino dish.
And you're like,
I think it was you who showed me him, and he was funny.
Yeah.
He talks about like all the different like way that different Asian people talk with accents. And how you can tell.
Yeah. How you could tell where they're from.
Right.
You know, I've noticed that too. Like I'll be watching Asian dramas and I could tell if it's Chinese, Korean, or Japanese just by how they speak. Like
really?
Just by like with people from China, they'll let more like consonants and it's very harsh sounding. Koreans are very flowy and it sounds like kind of pretty.
Yeah.
And then Japanese people, it's a lot of breathiness.
Yeah.
So even without checking, I can tell what it is, like what language it is.
Just because you like watch
I've just watched so many, I understand like at least the accents to know, like I'd be like, I bet this is Chinese. Yes.
Fuck,
or Korean or whatever. And occasionally there'll be, and it's because right away, not to say the Chinese, I think the Korean ones are better, but the Chinese ones right away, I'm like, that's so harsh sounding. Cause they're like, and I'm like.
Just phonetically, like
phonetically a lot of, like, and they speak very fast. And I'm like, that's very harsh sounding.
Stop Asian hate. That's so fucking interesting. How did you even get into really watching Korean dramas?
Here's what happened.
Did you watch anime a lot when you were?
Well, yeah, I watched a lot of anime, but here's what happened. Foreign films. I think I was watching a French film, like a Beauty and the Beast French film or whatever, like La Belle and la Bête or whatever.
Okay.
And I was like, and it's based off like the actual book where she has like 11 older siblings, like she's the youngest of 12, and like her dad's a merchant and like they're very wealthy, and all of a sudden they're not, so they basically sell her to the beast because he gives them like treasure. And I was watching it, I'm like, and then it came up with other foreign films, and there was this horror film that it was like an Asian horror film. I'm like, well, a lot of foreign films are a lot better, so let me watch these. So I watched this Asian horror film, and it was more thriller, I should say. It was very intellectual, and you're like, oh, it's a mystery. Mm-hmm. And then it went to this, like, a historical Asian one, which was basically porn. But I toughed through it, and it was a very interesting story, just without all the gross parts. And then all of a sudden, all these other ones showed up, and I'm like, and then it just spiraled from there.
Right. Because I think the one that you had shown me, the one that I had watched with you was Bong Soon.
Strong Girl Bong Soon.
Strong Girl Bong Soon.
It's not on Netflix anymore, which is sad. Nope. Which is also cool too, is that there's so I watched Oh My Ghost, which is a Korean film or a Korean show about a guy who can see ghosts and like physically touch them. Basically, he's an exorcist. I'm using quote fingies. Mm-hmm. And basically, people pay him to exorcise homes, and what he does is just kick the shit out of ghosts, like punches the shit, like he like whatever. And
I could see that being appealing because I know how much you love Supernatural.
But here's the thing: he doesn't want to be able to see ghosts, so he's charging for these exorcisms so he can get eye surgery. Oh. So he can no longer see them. Because when he was younger, his mom was murdered by a ghost. And he's been like haunted and stuff. Like he attracts ghosts because he can see them. And what happens is there's this one girl who doesn't look like the other ghosts have that aura around them that you can tell they're not normal because they're kind of like different shading, editing, whatever in film. Yeah. She looks normal, but no one else can see her but him. And later on you find out she's in a coma. So she's technically not dead.
But like that halfway point.
But they like team up. Because she can like find ghosts and figure out and help him kick ghosts' butt. And there's these two friends of his that are starting like a ghost hunting channel. But they're like, of course, they're the two comic relief, so they're weenies.
Yeah.
And they can't. And they
hunters.
need him to start their business and like beat up ghosts so they can film it and make money. And she helps. And eventually she wakes up from her coma and they fall in love. But it also, there's like this dark side because I think there's a serial killer going around. So that's where all these ghosts are coming from. And you find out that she was hit by a car and that's what put her in coma by the serial killer.
Oh,
and it turns out it's his college professor who's possessed by a demon, the same demon that killed his mom.
Holy
who's been
fuck,
trying,
what a plot twist.
who wants to possess him.
Okay.
And his uncle is also like a shaman, like monk guy, but he kind of sucks at his job.
What the fuck is the name of the show?
Oh My Ghost.
And
here's the thing. It's not on Netflix anymore either, but like I've noticed they go by similar names because now there's I think like a Filipino or a Japanese version of this film because it's based off a comic book. Okay. Or of this TV show. So it's the exact same concept. And I was watching him like, this one sucks. Like, it's the same storyline. I know what it is, but they added so much unnecessary plot, like subplots in there that weren't in there originally, I think. And they're taking much longer to get to plot points. Because the original one was made
where?
In Korea.
In Korea.
And now this one I think it's not Chinese. It's not Japanese. I don't know what it is. It's honestly something I've never heard of before. So it's probably a smaller country. But I've realized also for another one that I think there's something called like Mischievous Kiss or something, whatever. But it goes by a bunch of different names by the other countries that make the exact same show.
Yeah.
Based off this really famous comic book or whatever.
See, that was kind of like Death Note for me because like the original one, was it Japanese? Yeah, anime. And I fucking loved it. Like, that was the one that, like...
But you're talking about the shitty live-action remakes.
And then there was the live-action one, which...
And there's more than one.
Oh, it was the American one.
The American one is awful because they tried to set it in America. So you still have these Japanese names for these American people.
The only saving grace was Willem Dafoe. Yes. Fucking love Willem Dafoe.
I love how they made him...
So good.
The Shimigami, but I'm like, I wouldn't have done that.
Really?
No, because his voice is funny. And I understand this character is semi-funny, but he should also be creepy.
Well, see,
which
that's
is what
the thing.
I think. And the thing is, that's why I think it's funnier because he's super creepy, but the things he says are not. But if he has a non-creepy voice on top of that, there's not that weird like comedic opposition.
Yeah, because like Willem Dafoe. He has such the unique voice.
And the thing is, and then you can't get lost in the character because that's Willem Dafoe.
That's true. That's true. Because like you're like, hey, it's that. It's the dude I always go back to. He's like, that's the dude from Spider-Man.
Oh, I go, that's the dude from Sleepy Hollow.
Oh shit. But no, like yeah, it was. I don't know. That's the only thing I liked about it. But that's because I also like Willem Dafoe. Like was it Boondock Saints? What?
I'm out of tea.
Matt!
You could scat and then I'll
be right back.
We'll be right back. Intermission! Yes, and now it's English breakfast. I love how we're not going in any discernible direction with our conversation.
No. This is freeform. This is just the way I really like it. You get a...
You should look up Haunted Estate because it's really cool.
I think we watched that one together. Remember that?
We?
Where it's the couple?
No.
Is the English one, right?
No.
What?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because they're from Canada.
Wait, what's the one that we watched where it was a couple who moved it, or like she had inherited this mansion from a relative that passed away, and then her and her husband...
I'm talking about a podcast, not a show.
Oh.
And that's just called Ghosts.
Oh, is that one? Okay, you said it's a haunted mansion. So the haunted mansion podcast is from the one girl who does
the haunted estate or whatever.
The haunted estate,
and that's Selena Spooky Boo. And she's written some like books that are pretty like
Sleepwalker.
Yeah, wow.
There you go.
Flicking meat at me. Nice. And I like her podcast because it talks about spooky stuff. The only episode I have not liked was Chicken Soup for the Soul, but it was like not nice stories. Like there were dark stories, like people's personal stories. And I'm like, it left me going, oh.
Just a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Just like, ooh, fuck.
Because they're really bad stories. They're like people confessing like the worst things that ever happened to them.
Oh my God.
And it's a lot of abuse and like stuff like that. And I'm like, that didn't make me feel good at all.
Did you have a good holiday? I haven't seen you since before the holidays.
It was very hectic because I had my Christmas show with Alex.
Tell me about it.
I guess I kind of stage managed / assistant directed.
Is Shockley, Alex Shockley's?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. He
Get to talk with him tomorrow.
A couple months ago in the summer, our artistic director Quincy asked Alex to write a Christmas show because he wanted more artists involved, and he knows that Alex has written plays before, and asked him to write a Christmas show. That also we wouldn't have to pay for rights. So Alex teamed up with his cast, which took a while to get because you're asking people to volunteer because we don't have any money, so no one's getting paid. So people who had free time, they got together. I wasn't there that weekend. They wrote it because I think it was right before finals.
Yeah.
No, I'm lying. Right before midterms. Sorry. And I was like, I just couldn't be down there. I can't.
Yeah.
And he asked me to just do technical stuff. So I'm like, I don't need to be there to write it. I come the following week when they start rehearsing it, and it's basically it's the Christmas Carol, but modern day, and Scrooge hates Christmas music. Because Alex is a musician, so he's like, oh, me and my drummer will just play all the music. We're like, okay. So basically it starts out with the audience is there, and he's like, hey, let me introduce you to the chorus. And they like sing Deck the Halls while they decorate the stage and blah, 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 blah. And they just start singing, like it's a fun little, I guess the best thing it would be it's like like Christmas review.
Okay.
Or like not quite a cabaret, but it's, just a collection of Christmas songs.
Yeah.
And then we had a plant in the audience who would get up and be like, nah, Christmas music sucks. Why are we here? And Alex is like, why are you here?
Wait, like a person that you, like, who's part of
the cast.
The cast.
He wasn't even in the program. And
just ad-libbed, just everything. Was it like
no, it was all scripted and stuff, but like his whole thing is like Christmas music sucks. Why do we have to listen to this crappy music? The holidays commercialized. It's, not doing anything for people. Mm. And then basically throughout the show, they try to find Christmas music that he's okay with and learning and teaching him that like Christmas is not about Christmas music. Mm-mm. It's about your family.
Yeah.
And towards the end, he's like, fine, whatever. We even had a special effect where his whole backstory is the reason he hates Christmas music is because he was in a Christmas pageant when he was younger and peed himself on stage.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then we had him recreate it on stage. Yeah. So he peed himself on stage. We actually took one of those like applesauce like pouches.
Yeah.
Took all the applesauce out, put water in it with like I think a cotton ball in the little part, and he put it in his pocket and then he like squeezed it.
I was literally thinking you actually made it, dude. Fuck people who can cry on cue. I can piss my pants on cue.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
That's amazing.
And then one of the jokes is that I, as the costumer, who was also in the audience, he's like, Katie, because he goes, oh no, and runs out into the hallway. He's like, Katie, can you go help him? And I run out going, Adam, hold on. And then he comes back later after they've like talked about the chorus about, well, we're glad that he's not here to ruin stuff anymore. And then they sing, the you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch or whatever. And they kind of make fun of him. And then they continue for a little bit doing solos and like other things like this is my favorite song and this is why and whatever. Because there was some narrative in there. And then he comes back, but without his pants on, he's wearing like Christmas cat leggings. that were apparently supposed to be mine that I gave him.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be a joke that he's wearing like women's tights or something, like, because that's all we had left.
Yeah.
And then Santa Claus, which was Quincy, shows up and he beats the shit out of Santa Claus.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, they get into a fight because he brings everyone gifts because earlier they talk about what Christmas means to them or their favorite Christmas memory. Mm-hmm. And then Santa comes in with like gifts that are tailored to them. Like Grant likes to silently like read at Christmas parties, so he just got a book. Lauren loves Christmas music, so she got a record. And the other girl talked about, because she's Hispanic, the story of how poinsettias came about, so she got a poinsettia plant. He got Depends. Yeah. So then he beat up Santa Claus. And at the end, Santa Claus shows up and like all bandaged and stuff, and they make up.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty good show. My job was to, during rehearsals, take notes, because you have to take rehearsal notes, and email it to everyone, and then keep track of a prop list, because as they were going, I had to keep telling Alex they can't just stand there and sing. They have to have some type of movement choreographed, or like purposeful movement that doesn't have to be dance, but visually it was boring. And
right,
so,
like move about the space.
Like move around. So like when we got to like deck the halls, have them actually decorate the set.
Who was managing? Because you were stage manager, and then who was directing? Quincy? Alex was directing.
But he couldn't see because he was on stage being the musician.
Oh, okay, so you're like being his second set of eyes. Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm back here. I can't hear so-and-so and all that stuff. So, and then Ailey, his wife, was doing sound and lights.
Okay.
So I was back there with her, and I'd be like, Alex, hey, when they do Frosty the Snowman, have the shorter girl be Frosty. She'll stand up front, and they'll decorate her, like put in her arms, put on the top hat and like a scarf, and then she'll come to life, and she'll be dancing around like the song says. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah. And we also had like someone start singing a Wham song. And then Adam, the Scrooge guy, goes, is that Wham? You're not going to prove your point with Wham. And then the drummer, apparently, what he did is he's wearing a sweater, but he whips it off. He goes, hey, no one insults Wham. And there's a Wham t-shirt underneath. And then he storms off stage. And they're like, no, Chris, we need you. So it was a decent show. I definitely had to take notes. I think we could have pushed it a little more, but we only had so many rehearsals because people have lives. So we can only do it on the weekends. So we probably had maybe 8 rehearsals.
Okay.
But it was a decent show. It worked out. And Alex, actually, we let him have all the ticket profit. We kept the concession profit. Okay. And then he ended up taking that money and paying everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, because him being a trained artist like me, you have to value your artists and your technicians, and you have to pay them. Mm-hmm. You have to pay them for their work. And even then, like, I helped him with a show, 2 years ago, May the 4th be with you.
I think I remember that. I remember that.
You won that Star Wars thing and gave it to that kid?
Yeah, like the thing of it was like I got these, it was like a package of like 3 lightsabers. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with 3 lightsabers?
Why'd you participate?
I think because someone said you should. Yeah. And I was like, oh, sure. Never thinking that I was going to win.
Because his band is Alex the Traveler is his stage name, and his band is These Are the Droids You're Looking For. Yeah. And he wanted to do a space-themed review. So it was like any type of space song, and we had, I think, a skit where these 2 aliens come to Earth for the first time, and they get human bodies, but they don't know how to use them. So, like, how do we eat? And they're like, well, this hole is for talking. This is for breathing and hearing. What's this one for? And tries to shove an apple up their ass, and it doesn't work.
It's funny.
It was a pretty funny skit. And then he's like, hey, and he's very go with the flow, which both me and his wife were like, we need more structure than that. But he's like, hey, if we don't make the full 90 minutes, be prepared to play an improv game. I'm like, oh no.
Improv.
But he always fills out the time because he doesn't realize that during rehearsals we're going faster than we do during the show, because you wait for audience reaction and stuff too. So then at one point we play like the Vanna White show with me and the other two girls wearing ball gowns and giving away. I think he ran to Walmart and got a couple Star Wars like Lego sets and a few like lightsabers, and he like had people play the Price is Right game and then gave them away. Yeah, and it was like a fun space themed show. It was one day, and then that one performance, and then we went to I think the bowling alley after that, and he came up to me and just snuck me a 50.
That's right, I remember because we did go to the bowling alley afterwards. Because I was technically
stage managing too, and he just snuck me a 50. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, you should get paid. You did work. And I'm like,
that's true.
It's like I sat there
Capitalism.
and like
that's
it's
right.
Like I sat there and I took notes, and he's like, yeah, you worked. Like, and I'm like, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think for the Christmas show, this last one, I think I got $200
nice
from the tickets or whatever, and I was like, okay, that helped for Christmas or whatever. But yeah, so then after the Christmas show, I had finals like the following week. Mm-hmm. And then right after that, ow, you fuck. He literally is letting me pet him. So I'm like, cool, I can like look away and keep petting him, and then he bit me.
He's like, I like this hand thing. I wonder what it tastes like.
Exactly. We got you fixed so you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that didn't fucking stop anything.
Hey, he calmed down a little bit.
Like, yeah.
But like, and then went straight, don't get cute with me again, I don't trust you. So then it went straight into Christmas, and as soon, like literally 2 days after Christmas, I got a cold. Because I think my body was like, you can afford to be sick now because you have downtime. So I had a cold for about 4 days, and now I just have this lingering cough the last couple weeks.
Right now, yeah.
Yes. That's why I have this cough, but it's hard going back to the university and having to hold in a cough because people just instantly think you're like, have COVID. I'm like, guys, it's not. It's a cold. And you know what? Every time I've had a cold my entire life, I have a lingering cough for a month minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I remember at the very start of when, COVID went viral, no pun intended, I was at Aldi's getting groceries with my mom, and I was like, hey, Mom, watch this. And I just went, and I immediately like smile on my face, and the lady comes up to me. She's like, that's not funny. That's not funny. But yeah, especially at work. Like if I have like
I had a cousin who did that at Aldi's. He literally, it was such a long line. He went up to the guy and he's like, do you want a 15-minute break? I can get you one. And just started hacking. Because then people were leaving. He's like, I can give you a break, sir. You look overworked.
I recently discovered Aldi's again. Like, because for the longest time, I was struggling to like get to the grocery store because of what I was just staying fucking just steadily busy. And then I rediscovered, I was like, oh yeah, there's an Aldi's up here in Fargo just down the way. I'm able to look at everything on my phone, order it from my phone, and just go pick it up.
Yeah.
I'm like, why the fuck? Like, I did it when I lived back home in Alec. I'm like, I just want to start doing that shit again. Mm-hmm. That's way easier than having to DoorDash everything.
Yeah.
All the fucking time.
Yeah, or Instacart or whatever.
Yeah,
because they don't pay the employees. I mean, they're technically independent contractors, but they do not pay them. Because Mariah's doing DoorDash, but she has to work every single fucking day just to barely pay her rent.
Yeah,
because me and her, because I went up to Grand Forks. I'm like, yeah, have a girls' night. So with me, when I do a girls' night, we go to the grocery store and we just buy a shit ton of food. Of course, we're not going to eat all of it, but just in case. But every time I grab something, she's like, I don't know if I can afford that. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, I remember talking to her about it. She was like, you could see like from a person who works for like DoorDash, you can see how much someone's gonna like tip you, and you can either choose, hey, I'll pick it up,
shows
or, hey,
you whether or not they're tipping you, and people think they're being slick and only tipping $1. It's like, lady,
motherfuckers,
we could see that.
Yeah, like it's almost like
it literally shows you, hey, this person has this many items, wants you to go here, and this is how much they're paying you, and the base pay is this, so if it's this, that means they're only paying you $1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it shows you how long that will take.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna drive around for half an hour for $5. Mm-mm. And it's no. And
I'd be like damn sure, like if I do use DoorDash, that I absolutely tip the people.
Oh yeah.
Because like, bitch, that's not gonna even cover your gas. Mm-hmm. Like, or
exactly.
God forbid something happens.
And the thing is, if you pass him, like, I don't want to take that. If you do it too many times, they kick you off your shift because you're not accepting jobs.
Right.
So they basically be like, well, we're gonna just not let you work now because you are not accepting jobs. I'm like, yeah, I'm not accepting jobs because these suck.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna work for hours. Like, I think I tried it once and I worked for like 3 hours and made it was more like 4 hours and maybe made $40, $50. And Mariah's like, you should have made $100 in 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, people fucking suck. And also a lot of these people are all, because Fargo is such a big place, it's all over. So it takes longer to get to places. So that limits the amount of orders I can pick up.
Yeah.
Because I don't like driving. Because I don't like driving at night.
No.
Because it's harder to find like addresses at night. Because people don't think, oh, I should turn on my fucking porch light in the dark when DoorDash is trying to find me.
Oh, absolutely. Like, especially if I know that I am, I definitely like turn on the porch light. Or like
some people are freaking stupid because I've called people and then they turned on their porch light and I was like parked 2 houses down. I'm like, hey, in the future, could you turn on your porch light? Because how am I supposed to find your fucking house?
Yeah.
But I stopped doing it because this one lady. So I picked up something from B-Dubs, and the address sent me in totally the wrong direction. So like 15 minutes in the wrong direction, and then and once you get there, then it for some reason gives you further direction of how to deliver it. And then I was looking at the further direction, it says, oh, by the way, this address is not this one, it's the one on the MSUM campus. And I'm like, oh my God, are you freaking kidding me? So I finally, because I had also picked up another order from Burger King, and I'm like, the one by B-Dubs.
Yeah.
Over in Dilworth. And I'm like, oh shit. So I have to turn around, go to MSUM, which was another, so that was like 10 minutes to get to that spot, another 10 minutes to go back. So that's 20 minutes that this food's been sitting in my car, along with the other one. So now it's getting cold. And I had to not only was it on campus, it was in a dorm. So I had to walk all over across campus to get to this dorm because you can't park in the parking lots unless you have the pass. So you have to park down the street and walk. And then I had to find which door to go in because each dorm has like 6 different entrances. Yeah. Find this person. And it was late and I apologized. I'm like, it sent me in the wrong direction. And this lady from Burger King is going, hey, where are you? You picked up my order 35 minutes ago. Where are you? Where are you? And I'm like, I got lost. There was an order in front of you. I'm so sorry. And then she's like, well, I don't want cold food. And I'm like, do you want to cancel the order? And she's just like, well, it said it was supposed to be here 15 minutes ago. And I'm like I said, I got lost. The app glitches. Yeah. It gets me lost all the time, by the way. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Yeah. And then she just kept getting angrier. And I'm like, I finally called Mariah, and I'm like, Mariah, I don't know how to handle this. She's like, fuck her. Tell her she'll get her food and then just leave. I'm like, fine. So, and the thing is, because they can track you, she's like, you're at MSUM. Why are you there? And I'm like, because there was an order in front of you, and I got lost with that order. And it turns out it was a hookah shop like 5 blocks from the campus. And I get there and I'm like, lady, I understand this is like your lunch break, but there's a McDonald's literally 1 minute from here. And the Burger King I picked this up from is 3 minutes from here. So why did you have me pick it up and then wait 45 minutes when it's literally you could have walked to this place?
Dude, I tell you,
and then she was so pissed off. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore because people are such assholes. Yes, I would be a little upset too that my food got picked up half an hour ago and now it's going to be cold. But I'm not going to yell at the driver when they explain to me, hey, the order in front of you, I got lost. And it's on the campus and I'm having trouble finding this person before I can get to you. And you're timed too. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but like I gave you the option to cancel the order so you don't have to pay it. I mean, I think you still have to pay the tip, but you don't have to pay for the whatever. And I'm like, and I just kept apologizing. And I'm like, I'm sorry this happened, blah, 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 but you'll get your food. And she just kept saying, well, I don't want it to be cold. I'm like, well, I'm not going to turn around and get you a new one because then you have to buy a new one. And have fun with customer service. I'm a private contractor. Yeah. And it's just the way she was like, just not. I was trying to be nice. I'm like, well, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? She's like, Rah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna drop off your food and fucking run away. And like, because I don't do like confrontation very well, so I didn't want to see her. So I just literally dropped her off and ran away while I was talking to Mariah on the phone. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore because too many people are assholes.
Yeah. And it's sad because that stuff, though it is very convenient, and it's not like, and
you could pick
DoorDash
up,
is great.
If I needed an extra like $20, I could probably make it in like an hour. But like,
It's like the people who like order from DoorDash. It's like
they're either super nice because they're usually parents trying to like feed their kids,
right?
But they're too
just
busy.
like I'm just really busy.
Yeah, or they're like lazy assholes.
So fucking lazy. There have been so many times,
and those people are the one that make it worse because they're the ones that don't tip very well. And I'm like, and this same lady only tipped me like $1, and I'm like, or like $2 or something, or these bigger orders, and they're maybe paying you a couple bucks, and I'm like,
right?
It's not worth it.
I think it was
it's
Mariah.
Not worth it at all because they probably assume DoorDash is paying you on top of it. I'm like, no, this is the wage.
No.
I got $4 from this.
And then that's the thing that
it's like it doesn't even cover the gas. So that's why I'm like, if you're going to use the service, you need to understand that you're paying their wage basically. And you need to pay them say you buy your food, that's fine. Your order is like $12.
There's a delivery fee.
There's a delivery fee. And like, so for every order is like maybe $3 or $4 for it to get delivered. So you're up to like $17 for your hamburger, your shake, and your fries, whatever. And I understand that's a lot, but you're also paying for someone to deliver it for you.
Yeah.
And if you only pay them $1 to $2 because you don't want to pay too much money, I'm like, well, that person's only getting that $4 plus the $2. Mm-hmm. So they got $6 from driving to this restaurant, waiting, picking up, driving that, which probably took them a total of 20 minutes, and they made $6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. If you think that's too expensive, then get your ass in the car and go get it yourself.
Don't. Two things. Don't make a career out of doing DoorDash delivery things.
Because it's destroying Mariah.
Right, it is. And also, don't get mad that it's expensive.
And don't get mad at the people either.
No.
They're doing DoorDash because they're poor. I did DoorDash because I'm poor. And I thought it would help, but it just was frustrating and a lot more work than what I was getting paid for.
Yeah.
Because it's not quite a scheme, but the people who created it made it easy for the customers to screw over the drivers.
Yeah, it's a weird.
And the app is garbage. So
yeah, I've had with certain restaurants, I've had a lot of success, and then with some of them, I've. Not because I don't like the food from a certain restaurant. It's just, it's a lot more hassle doing it. So if I could, what I've done is like, I'll go pick it up myself.
Yeah. It's like order it, have it ready, but go pick it up yourself.
Right. Kind of like old fashioned ways where like, you know, like if you order Chinese food, like I order Thai food from this restaurant I fucking love. And like, I could walk to it. Mm-hmm. Probably not now because it's cold as balls, but like it's
right. Yeah, just look outside. Why do I keep every time I walk outside, I'm like, I fucking hate it here, you guys.
Dude, last week was the fucking worst. I was at work.
Oh, it's so cold.
And
it's colder than the Arctic.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not allowed. That can't be allowed.
I was just like, why did I move here?
Well, because then, did you see Caitlin's TikTok where she's like, there's no hurricanes, there's no earthquakes, there's no scorpions, and she's cleaning off her car, but she's like, you know what we do have? Crippling depression.
I was at the comedy club, and there was this guy, and I think his name was Zach, and he was talking about how he was talking about like seasonal depression, and he was like, you know, so people with seasonal depression, he was kind of a little bit poking fun at them, but he's like, when you're having tough times through like these winters and this guard, he's like, come hang out with us, lifetime depression people.
Like, yeah, I love yours is affected by it got cloudy outside. I'm over here going, you know what sucks? My entire fucking life forever. And I'm just breathing air over here, just trying not to think about it.
But like, okay, you know, the person breathing air, just depressed person breathing air.
Like when I said earlier where I'm like, I had my first so the reason I went to the doctor is because I've had anxiety and depression for most of my life. But when you're able to like self-regulate and kind of like figure out ways, like I escaped through reading. Yeah, I read over 100 books a year, but that's because I don't like it here. Yeah. So I escaped through
traveling,
like through books. And people used to say, yeah, I just read all the fucking time. I'm like, yeah, because I fucking hate it here. Like, yeah. And then I'm pretty sure I've undiagnosed ADHD, but that's a different story. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to cope with art, keeping myself busy. I literally do research things and put together portfolios on subjects I will never have to use. Like,
fucking fascinating.
Like, I'll randomly go, what if I, by chance, somehow, one day, direct the Addams Family musical. So I get a binder, the sheet music, the script, and I literally sketch out set designs, lighting designs, costume designs, blocking, and all this other stuff. So I have this huge portfolio so I could just whip it out one day and be like, here we go. Let's do it. But I have so many shows ready to go, and they've been just sitting on my shelf. But every once in a while, I'm like, it's 11 p.m. and I don't want to go to bed because I'm feeling the sad feelings. Let's distract myself. Next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. and my eyes are burning, but it's complete. And I'm like, oh. And then I can like exhaustedly go to sleep. But this last summer...
See, to me, that doesn't sound like ADHD. What it sounds to me like is...
Well, it's a hyperfixation.
Yeah.
I get the same thing with food. Like 1 week, it destroyed me. I swear to God, it changed my internal structure for the rest of my life. I ate nothing but baked beans for 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
Oh, it destroyed me.
Oh my God.
It was so bad. And then another time I ate watermelon for every meal for a week. Or whatever. That was expensive. And then right now,
interesting.
And then, or I'll eat like one specific type of cereal for like 3 weeks. Like it's hyperfixation. Same thing. Where like, hey, I'm gonna take up knitting, and then I knit a bunch of shit for like a month, and I just drop it. Hyperfixations are so expensive for me because one day I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make metal jewelry. So I grabbed all of these like pliers, tools, metal, whatever. Got it all ready to go. Spent over $100 on it. Never touched it. Did all the research. Did all the whatever. Never touched it. I think theater's like crack. It's in the moment. You're like, oh, why am I here? This is so stressful. Oh, stress shits. And like no sleeping.
That's a real thing, by the way.
Skipping meals because you forget what time it is. You're like, you blink your eye and it's been 6 hours and you've barely gotten anything done. And just everything clenched and feeling like the weight of the world on your shoulders. But once it's done, you're like, I want to do that again. Because at the end, it's fun. And it's like, because there's that, because you see that payoff of all your work, and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm going to do that again. And then you're in it again. You're like, why am I here? It's like a druggy cycle. Like, there's that high, and then there's that low, and you're like, oh, this sucks. I want to do it again. And then you get in, you're like, oh, wow, why am I doing this to myself? Oh, this is nice. And then it just keeps going. But this right after the summer, right when I babysat your cat, because I'm like, I want to see if I can take care of a cat. And I'm like, wow, this is chaos, but I think I can handle it. I got my cat, and then I just slammed into a depression that had been one of the worst. Like, I was like crying several times a day, every day for weeks, and I would just burst into tears and just have like a full meltdown over nothing. It's just that feeling washes over you, and I'll be sitting there like, why am I crying? There's nothing. It would just hit you like, all of a sudden you have anxiety or whatever, and it just becomes overwhelming. Yeah. And then you're also confused, which freaks you out even more. Like, why is this happening? And then I'm like, well, I need to take care of, and I think it's because also I gave myself this extra responsibility of an animal now. Because right away, a couple days after I adopted her, I'm like, one day she's gonna die. What am I gonna do? I have a weird obsession with death, but that's a different story. But like, I'm like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna handle it? Well, I've been handling it by collecting her whiskers, and I made little clay impressions of her paws. Yeah. So one day I can make a shadow box.
Yeah.
And then I found a person on Etsy or whatever that makes like life sculptures of your animals.
Oh.
And I'm like, doing it. I don't care how much it costs. And just all this other stuff. And I finally, after a couple weeks, I'm like, school's starting. I have to get this. I can't do this with school. It's my senior year. I can't fall behind. Fall behind for me is getting B's. And I take pride in my education. So then I went to the doctor, and I was in the waiting area, and I just became overwhelmed with like why I was there. So I'm just holding it in, not talking to anybody, not looking anyone in the eye because I knew it would trigger it. And then I get into the doctor's office, and like I said, she looked at me and she's like, how are you doing? And then I just instantly just started sobbing. And she's like, oh.
Was it Emma?
Yeah, it was Emma.
She's fucking
And she
great.
just gives me a tissue. She's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, just really concerned. I'm like, no. Because when I scheduled the visit, I wrote down in the notes, why are you coming in? And I put anxiety, depression, ADHD ?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just can't. It's the worst it's ever been. My coping mechanisms I've developed over my life aren't working anymore. Which is also making it worse because I'm like, why is it not working anymore?
Yeah.
What's changed? And then just going from that and just her immediately, because before her I had a DO, which is fine. I kind of prefer that. So right away when she's like, do you want to start medication? I'm like, whoa, you're just going to give me meds right away? Like,
right.
Because my last...
It's a different approach.
My last doctor would have been like, I think you should start yoga and then like start going on jogs to like naturally get serotonin and stuff like that. But I'm like, I'm too depressed to do that. Like, I can't motivate myself to do that.
Yeah.
So she's like, let's try Zoloft. And she's like, do you know if anyone in your family ever took these? Because however it affects them will probably affect you. I'm like, I have no idea. Grabbed the Zoloft, went home. My mom's like, oh, I had that when I had postpartum. And I'm like, ah, shit. And she's like, I'm like, what about that? She's like, it made me super tired. I'm like, great.
Yeah. Too tired to be depressed.
Too tired to be depressed, but too tired to do everything else. And that's what happened. I only started doing half a pill. She's like, do half a pill every day for 2 weeks and then go to the full one. And I'm like, after 1 week, and I'm like, Emma, I can't do anything. I'm literally just sitting on my couch and sleeping, and I'm skipping classes because I just can't leave my apartment. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not sad anymore, but like, I don't feel anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, let's then go to Prozac. Well, with me being super poor, I have state-funded insurance, and they don't like certain medications in their certain forms. So for the longest time, I was calling between my doctor, my pharmacy, my insurance, back and forth, because along the chain of communication, something broke. And when they had the medication kind of just circling there, like just waiting to get approved by something or someone, they shelved it after a week because they couldn't get approval from somewhere. And finally I'm like, why isn't this happening? I called the insurance. They're like, well, because your doctor prescribed it as a tablet, and for some reason they won't approve it Prozac as a tablet, but they will as a capsule. Yeah, it's because of how much it costs to manufacture it, whatever. So then they changed it, but I was in tears, and I finally broke down and just ranted at this pharmacist. And then I ranted at Emma again. I finally called her and told her the whole story. She's like, no, you shouldn't have had to do that. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't my job to make sure that you guys were communicating so I can get my meds. And then she gave me Prozac, and I've been feeling a lot better. And she gave me emergency medications for super, super dark days, apparently. And then my propranolol for my heart, for my blood pressure. Yeah. For my nerves. And performance anxiety or whatever. And it's funny because she's like, yeah, 2 months from now, I'll just call you and check up on you. And she's like, how's it been going? I'm like, I feel a lot better since we went to Prozac, but today was the first meltdown I had. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I cried myself awake. That's new. And
she's like, crying to sleep.
No, which I've done. Yeah. All through high school. Yeah. But
what did I do last night? I cried myself to sleep.
But it's because I had a nightmare about my aunt who died several years ago around this time, like in January. And she was basically my mom, because my mom, being a single mom with 2 toddlers, we only saw her in the morning when she got us up, and at night when she picked us up from daycare. The rest of the time we were at my aunt's, and she basically raised me. She took us ice skating, sledding, was the one that taught me how to put on makeup and nail polish and do chores and, earn money to go garage sailing. Like, she was my mom when I only got to see my mom on the weekends. Yeah. So she was my other mom. So she died of like an aneurysm or something very suddenly.
I wanted to talk about your very interesting perception of like you have this ability, like when you know something's going on, like
my psychicness.
Your psychic powers.
My psychic powers to know when something depressing is happening.
Yeah, like something in the universe just fucking clicks. And
me and my sisters. My youngest sister, poor her, she's agoraphobia or whatever, so she doesn't leave her house. So I haven't seen her in person in years. So every family gathering we have, she doesn't come.
Are they almost all near like graduated too?
The middle sister Peyton is in Duluth on her freshman year of college. Yep. And Autumn, who's exactly 10 years younger than me, is 16. Okay. So she's getting there. She lives with her narcissistic mother, so hopefully she can escape that house in 2 years.
God willing.
God willing. Jesus Christ. Yeah. And by the way, they're my half sisters. They live with my ex-stepmother, and she's a horrible human being. All of my childhood trauma came from this woman. Right. So this is why I don't like it.
She's the reason you're on Prozac.
Well, yeah. She's the reason I'm on Prozac. Well, she's also the reason why I have basically all of my insecurities, and I don't like it when people just slightly raise their voice at me because she just screamed at us as kids, like me and my brother, and just screamed at us until the point we were afraid of her. Like, we were deathly afraid of her.
Yeah.
Like, just being in the same room as her. And I don't know. Getting off topic. My youngest sister has agoraphobia, but she can also smell death. She discovered this because she can tell when people are also very sick. Mm-hmm. She says it smells like burning, like something's burning on the stove or whatever, and it gets stronger the worse it is. So she predicted when her grandfather was going to die, like up to like a couple days before it happened.
Yeah.
Because they would go visit him once a week in the nursing home because he had dementia, or he had developed it, and she says every week it smelled worse in his room. Like, it was getting worse. And then the last time she saw him, which was like a couple days before he died, she's like, I think this is it.
Yeah.
It was just so overwhelming for her. She also could tell, I think both of her and her sister and her mom got like really bad pneumonia. And she's like, I could smell it, that they were going to that they were really sick, or they were going to get really sick because they just started to smell like bonfire, like smell like just them as people. She'd walk in the room and just smell it. And it would get worse and worse until they finally got this really bad pneumonia, and it didn't go away until they got better.
Yeah. That's the thing.
My middle sister, Peyton, she can kind of do what I do a little bit. Me and her can, I don't know if she's ever heard them, but she can see spirits. Like, she's seen a lot of shadow people. It's really funny because she has my old childhood bedroom. Yeah. I'm like, hey, I want to tell you a few stories. She's like, shit. she's like, what's happened? And I'm like, one time I stared at a shadow person who was staring at me. We stared at each other for like 20 minutes.
This is you?
In the middle of the night. The story is, so I was sleeping and I woke up because I felt like someone was staring at me. And I look up.
Fuck.
And not 5 feet from me, it was probably like 4 feet away from my head, I had a dresser. And I saw what looked like a man with his arms crossed leaning against the dresser staring at me. And I'm like, oh, it's my dad. Because my dad does this thing where he checks in on the kids at night because he can't sleep.
Yeah.
And I've caught him a few times, and I did that thing as a kid where I pretended to be asleep. And he'd come in, sit for a minute or two, kind of check in on us, kind of sit there and kind of like reminisce, I don't know, be nostalgic about us being younger. I don't fucking know what dads do. And then he would just get up and walk away. So I'm like, oh, it's my dad. And I'm looking at it, and I realize this person's way buffer than my dad.
Oh.
Like, buff. Yeah. And my dad had a little beer belly. I'm like, that's not my dad. Like, the physique. That was not my dad. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy in my bedroom? And it's a man, because I could just tell by, like, whatever. Yeah. And slowly, it probably took me 10 minutes. Slowly, centimeter by centimeter, reach for my remote, because if I turned on my TV, it would illuminate my whole room.
Yeah.
So it probably took me 5-10 minutes just to reach for something that was a couple inches away. And I was staring at it the whole time. So when I turned on my TV lights, I could see who it was. Instantly, as I turned on my TV, it just, as soon as the light reached that corner of my room, it vanished.
Wow.
And I had been staring at this thing for like at least 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
like it wasn't bullshit.
No, and it was definitely there. And it's only like and I understand it was dark, like my room was pitch black, but like there was like some lighting in there, because I think I had, you know how like it could be a pitch black room, but you can still kind of see because there's like moonlight or something coming in through your window or whatever, so it's not totally pitch. Like I could see that there was a person in my room.
Yeah.
And they just disappeared, and she's like, thanks for telling me that, because they live on land that was mostly pasture, because there's a farmer on both sides of them. Like, it's out in the country, so they're far away.
Yeah.
But it was mostly pasture, so they just had a little hobby farm there, and like no one's supposed to be living there, but also they're Native Americans, so maybe shit followed them. I don't know. So
skinwalkers.
Fucking no. But like, she's seen things. I personally, and I'm pretty sure that a property's haunted because the TV turns on all the time by itself. It's weird. But I have both seen and heard things, but I've also had dreams, like predicting things. But I'll also have this uncanny thing, like you were saying, where I just know stuff. So I'll be at work as a massage therapist, look at the book, see who my client is, and we don't take last names. It'll just say Joe. And I'm like, I know exactly who that is. And no shit, they'll come in and be like, hey, knew you were coming. How'd you know? Just knew.
Right.
Or I'll be in a massage and I'll be like, I think my next client just canceled. And I'll come out of the room and I'll have a coworker go, hey, your next client just canceled. I'm like, I know. And they're like, how do you know? You were just in a room for an hour. And I'm like, I just knew. And they're like, okay. But it also comes in handy, like, in stupid ways. Like, I'm in the drive-thru at Burger King and I want a chocolate shake and fries, and they're like, our ice cream machine is down, and I blurt out, no, it's not. But I'm like, I just called them liars, and they go, I'm like, I'm so sorry.
like just too much truth. You're just like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Because I just felt it, like, no, it's not. Like, you're lying to me.
Yeah.
But the worst part of it is when I can feel someone die.
Yeah,
So that's happened to me 3 times.
Yeah.
Or almost die. So the first time it happened, I was helping Maddie, now laying in high school, when she was moving from her apartment to the house that she moved into.
Yeah. And
we had to be at least 16 or 17 because she was driving. So we were going to the different liquor stores and getting boxes.
Yeah.
And as we're driving, I'm like, am I having a panic attack right now? Or am I like having a depressive episode? Because it normally happens, it hits me and I just want to start crying. And I'm like, but it had this feeling of grief and sadness behind it. I'm like, oh my God, why am I crying? She's like, are you okay? I'm like, she's like, and she's very empathetic. She's like, she's an empath. She has to be. Yeah. Because she's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? She like pulled over and she's like, are you okay? And we were almost to this liquor store, the one by McDonald's.
Yeah.
Or by City Park.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And I happen to look up in the rearview mirror and there's a funeral procession like 4 blocks behind us.
Whoa.
And I'm like, I'm just picking up
those signals from
those feelings from those people in that funeral procession who are grieving.
Yeah.
And that happened one other time driving to Wadena. It happened again where I broke down and I pulled over and I looked in front of me this time and there was a funeral procession like crossing. Yeah. Like in the distance. And I'm like, could you guys stop it?
Oh my God.
I want to pick this stuff up. But another one was my uncle.
I remember.
Was driving by the movie theater in the bowling alley. And he was in the winter and he skidded on ice and he like rolled into the ditch. Yeah. He had to be hospitalized. And earlier that day, I think I was in school too. I excused myself to go to the bathroom so I could cry. And I didn't know why. Yeah. And then I got a phone call from my mom. Or a text message or something back when we had flip phones in middle school, that my uncle had been in a car accident and that he was in the hospital. Yeah. And that had it been any worse, like just a little bit worse, he would have died. And I'm like, shit.
So you kind of picked up on it, right? Yeah. There was another one
The worst one. Yeah. When I drove home from
I remember
work,
this one. Yeah.
And just as I parked into my driveway, I just started crying and bawling and hyperventilating. Like it just hit so hard. And I was sitting in my driveway. It was at my mom's house when I was living with her. And she eventually calls me, but I couldn't pick it up because I'd been in the car for 15 minutes. She knows sometimes I'll linger in the driveway if there's a song on. Yeah. So like an extra 2-3 minutes, whatever. She's like, she's jamming to a song. But I was in there for 15 minutes and she's like, what is happening? Yeah. Calls me. I don't answer her because I know I can't physically talk. Right. And finally she gets out. I'm embarrassed, by the way, when this happens. It's so embarrassed. Like, I grew up in a, like, German-Irish family. You don't cry in front of people. Right. Weak. And you cry by yourself in the car or late at night when no one can catch you. Right. And she comes out and she opens the door. I didn't even unbuckle myself. Like, she's like, what's happening? And I'm just hyperventilating. I can't breathe. And she unbuckles me and physically takes me out. She's a short woman. Yeah. 5 foot nothing. And takes me out of my car. And I'm like hanging on her. And we get in the living room and I'm just crying. And she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I have no idea what's wrong. I have no idea what's going on. And finally, after another 20 minutes, she calms me down. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I have no idea what that was about. Yeah. So about 2 or 3 hours later, my mom gets a text message saying that her best friend since high school, so that's like 20 some years, had just passed away because her friend had been in hospice dying from stomach cancer. Yeah. And we had been told she had died 2 hours earlier. Right around the time. Right when I had my thing. And then I had to comfort my mom while she was sobbing. And I'm like, this is a weird turn today. Uh-huh. And my mom, I felt so bad for my mom because she knew she had been moved to hospice like the week prior, but they thought she was going to hang on a little more because her sons, who are grown, came to visit her. And she's like baking high protein bread and food because she was losing so much weight. and feeding her and trying to like support, because they only live 3 blocks from us.
Yeah.
Like our entire lives, like my entire life, I should say. So that's 20 some years. And she was the bridesmaid for my mom when she got married and made her wedding cake, made all of my childhood birthday cakes and my brother's. Like they were, my mom occasionally used to like complain that if her friend called, she'd be on the phone for 2 hours because she liked to chat. She's like, gosh, sometimes she just doesn't know how to shut up. Like, but she loved her. And it was so sad because my mom didn't want to bother her that weekend because her kids were up. And she's like, I don't want to hog her time. Yeah. So she's like, they visited Friday. She's like, I'll call her on Monday. Yeah. Well, she died on Sunday. Yeah. And my mom's like, I'll never get a chance to talk to her again. I should have called her on Friday like I wanted to and whatever. So she saw it as a missed opportunity. And then later, I think a week or two later, I had a dream where I saw her and she told me that she was okay. Yeah. And to tell my mom that she was fine. Yeah. And I did. Yeah. My mom doesn't really believe in that stuff, but I think it made her feel a little better. Yeah. So, yeah, I haven't had anything like that recently that I know of. Maybe that whole 3 or 4 weeks in August was just a shit ton of people dying. I don't know. and now I'm medicated because of it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
There's one more story that I want you to tell where...
I have a bunch of ghost stories. Right. Theaters are haunted. Because they're magnets. I don't care if a theater was built 2 weeks ago or 20 years ago. There's ghosts. Yeah. And why? Alex asked me that once, and Shockley, and he's like, why is that? And I'm like, because they're magnets. They feed off energy, right? No other place, other than like maybe the Olympic arena or whatever, will have so much energy because you have actors pushing out energy and audiences
reciprocating it,
not only absorbing it but pushing their own back. That's why sometimes actors will be like, oh, the audience is dead tonight, because even if the audience is laughing and doing whatever, the actors can feel that they're disconnected. But when there's a good night, they're like, oh my god,
it's just
they're so in it, and you can feel it in the air.
Electricity, that's what they describe
exactly.
it.
The thing is, from an outside standpoint, people would say like, well, last night's audience laughed and participated. Like, no, they were not in it.
It's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe. And I'm like, and you would get that from hundreds of people a night. Yeah. Plus the rehearsals. Plus how many shows? Say you do 6 shows a year and you do 8 performances per show, and each show brings 300 people. You have thousands of people coming in and just pushing energy out. So of course ghosts be like, buffet. Right. Right. So every theater I go to, I don't like staying late at night. And they're like, even if it's a high school theater, they're like, they all have a ghost. We had Tabitha.
Oh, we fucking did.
At the middle school. I'm pretty sure the high school has a new one. It's only been around, 6, 7 years?
Yeah.
7 years, 8 years?
15, 2015.
It would be 2015, so that would be like 7 years. Yeah. So it's only 7 years old. I bet it's a ghost. There's already a ghost there. There has to be. Who wouldn't? What, as a ghost, I would live in a theater. Yummy. And also you get to watch performances. And that's why we have ghost lights, and we appease, at the Andrea, we appease our ghosts because otherwise props go missing. We come back and shit's broken. You almost need to give an offering, here, please be nice to us. Please don't mess with our shit. But the Andrea has given me some experiences.
I want you to tell the one.
Which one?
The one where you're up in the costume room.
Oh, the first time I heard one speak to me?
Yeah, oh yeah. Lay that one on us.
Or the one that broke a fucking mirror.
We tell both of them. That's how we'll close out the podcast.
They did happen back to back.
Let's hear them.
Show. So, what show was it? What happened first? Okay, the mirror breaking happened first. So in the Andrea, it's an old converted movie theater. Mm-hmm. But because it's an old movie theater, if you go to old towns, the movie theaters are in the middle of a street, of downtown. So there's shops on either side. Yeah. So it just juts out. So there's apartments above, because a lot of downtown businesses have apartments. We converted ours because it's a nonprofit. You can't legally rent them out for profit. Yeah. So there were 4 up there. One is technically still an apartment in case we need to house a traveling director from out of town or something. So they don't have to spend money at a hotel or ask someone to house them.
Yeah.
The other 3 were converted into costume rooms. I think the first one's like accessories like hats, scarves, fabric, whatever, shoes, stuff like that. Another one's just all women's attire, and another one's all men's attire.
Yeah.
I was just giving a layout. So we have a basement that was renovated a couple years ago to be like another downstairs lobby and like a dance studio, along with the furniture prop room and like the smaller prop room. But that's a tunnel that leads to under the stage, which is super creepy.
Yeah, fuck that tunnel.
Yeah, fuck that tunnel.
That thing's fucking scary as shit.
It's so scary because it gets you start walking and then you end up crawling and then it opens up into a room you can stand in again. And it's just,
and I don't like small spaces are okay, but not where you like get stuck.
Well, you don't have to crawl on your hands and knees, but like you have to crouch.
Yeah.
And like penguin waddle. Like, but I've only been there down there a couple of times. But it's creepy down there. And you get this presence of like someone's watching you when you're down there, and it's uncomfortable. So we jokingly say among us that there's a demon down there. But we also say that upstairs, like the main ground where the actual stage is and like dressing rooms and lobby and stuff like that, and also the top where the apartments are, is Andrea, the nice ghost. We named her that because the building is called the Andrea.
Yeah.
One day we were doing a show called Lend Me a Tenor. And it's a fast-paced show, super funny, and it's about mistaken identity. And we needed to make a dressing room backstage because there was a quick changes. Like, they had to go back there and completely change their clothes, take off wigs, take off this really heavy makeup, and put on their regular makeup in, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, because it's a converted movie theater, there's not a lot of space backstage. So back there is a big closet that juts out because they built it from the back wall, where they keep all their cables and all of their like technical stuff.
Yeah.
And there's like these 2 open doors. So I took a little table and put it right next to there because I'm like, I can't, this is where they come off stage. It has to be right here. But I'm like, I need a mirror. But I didn't want to take any of the mirrors from the dressing room. So I'm like, hey, I think there's a mirror downstairs in the basement. Can someone go grab a mirror? And they're like, sure, I'll go get it. They grab the mirror and I take it, put it on the dressing on that table, but I jam it behind the doorknob of this closet because I'm like, if they're running back here and they accidentally, like with most people who run backstage, clip it with their hip or they clip it with their foot as they're running past it, I don't want it falling over. So it's jammed there in case someone runs into it.
Yeah.
So we don't break this mirror. And every night it would get splattered because I had like buckets of water to wash off people's faces and makeup, and they just got splattered with crap. So I would always get so tired after the show and just go home and be like, I'll come in tomorrow early and just wipe it down and clean up. Well, one day I got distracted. I forgot to clean it, and I went straight into the makeup room and just started doing people's stuff. And then Donna, our prop manager and our stage manager, came up. She's like, hey, how's it going? Do we need to check backstage? I'm like, oh, backstage. I'm like, Donna, I know it's not your job. It's my fault, my responsibility. I should have done it, but could you just go backstage and wipe down the mirror? I'll clean the little stuff. I have a few minutes when the show starts. Just wipe down that mirror for me so it's dry when I get down there. She's like, yeah, sure. Not 10 minutes later, she comes up and like I could feel something about her. And I go, Donna, what's wrong? And she goes, you're not going to believe me. And I'm like, what'd you do? And she's like, I didn't do anything. And she's like, something happened. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, okay, so when you're backstage, there's stage left and stage right, but you go off the audience's point of view. So technically, if you're facing the audience, your right and left are opposite. So she's like, I'm on stage left, which is, no, wait, where was she? She's on stage right, so it's on the right side of the stage when you're looking at the stage from the audience point of view. And so the cabinet or the little setup I have is right on stage right. But to get to the dressing rooms and the makeup room, it's on stage left. It's like I think it's like 60 feet you have to cross to get to the other side and get out the door. And she's like, I took a warm rag, not a hot one, because it's cold back there, because right back there are doors that lead to the alleyway, so cold leaks in. And she's like, I didn't want to use hot, because if you do hot and cold, the glass will break. So she's like, I took a warm, like, just past cold, just warm enough to wipe it down, and then she dried it. And so she walked away. She got to the other side of the stage, 60 feet away. She hears, turns around, and there's glass shattered all over the stage. And she's like, what the fuck? So she ran over, and there's an impact mark. Like, it didn't, like, spiderweb crack because of the cold or anything weather else. Or because of the cold or the heat. Like something punched it. Something hit it. And then she ran away. She just fucking ran away. Jesus she ran Christ. Back, and she said, something broke the mirror. And I'm like, what do you mean something broke the mirror? Like, did it fall over? And she's like, no, it did not fall over. And I'm like, well, did you use really hot water? Because that, she's like, I'm not stupid. Like, she's like, and I wasn't offended by her saying that, because she's like, well, I'm not dumb. I know not to do that. Yeah. And I'm like, that's true. That is true. You know what you're doing. You're the prop person. And whatever. And she goes, no, I only use like lukewarm water. And I'm like, that's really weird. And she's like, and then she told me there's impact mark. And only that, even if it had like broke because of like the shattering, it would have just fallen straight onto the table. Yeah. But there were shards feet away. That like flew out. And I'm like, excuse you? What? Yeah. And me going, I'm not going back there. Fuck no. And then she's like, where the fuck did you get this mirror? I'm like, from the basement. And she's like, from the basement? And I'm like, oh no.
Where are the demons at?
So finally, one of our actors who played the main character, he's like, oh, I'll go clean it. I'm like, I'm not cleaning it up. And she's like, I'm not replacing it and cleaning it up. I'm not fucking going back there. And he finally went, it was John. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'll go do it. So he goes, sweeps it. I don't know if he brought a vacuum. I think he swept it at least and just told people, hey, make sure you're wearing your shoes, because sometimes I would run back there like barefoot real quick. Yeah. And which is stupid. I know better. Never walk back like barefoot on a stage. No. And he's like, and I replaced the mirror. I grabbed one from the men's room. From the men's dressing room, because we don't really need that many mirrors. And I'm like, thank you. He's like, and I wedged it, whatever. I'm like, what'd you do with the shards? He's like, I just threw them in the back alley dumpster. And I'm like, okay. Like, was anything creepy back there? He's like, no, I didn't feel anything. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, great. What am I? I'm back there in the dark by myself for most of the show. Donna occasionally walks back there, but I don't think she's going to hang out with me anymore backstage. But I have to be there.
Yeah. Just living with the demon.
But like there's no explanation as to what happened other than we pissed off the ghost that's downstairs by taking something. The mirror. And I don't know. It was just one of those creepy things that happened. So about 2 months later, we're doing Pirates of Penzance Jr. And me and another girl are doing costumes. And it's rehearsal, so it's like 5:30 at night. It's January, February. It's already dark outside, and it's cold as shit upstairs. Yeah. Because they don't regulate the temperature in the costume rooms. Why would they? So we go all the way up the stairs. There's a lot of stairs. And I am looking through all the different rooms looking for, like, flowy blouses, vests. Sarah's... So the way it's laid out is that when you go on the top of the stairs, the first apartment right in front of you is the like notions in a like little accessories room, and then to the right, immediate right, is the girls' room, and then you have to walk all the way down this long hallway to go to the men's costume room. And she's in the men's. And I'm, kind of got an armload full of stuff, and I'm like, I already have everything I need, but I'm just going to start locking up. So I lock up the first one in front of me, and I'm walking past. Let me preface this, by the way. Everyone knows that I can kind of I've had other spooky encounters, like staying late at night in the dressing room, and I'm the only one in the building, and I can hear people walking around, like in the makeup room above me, or like in the, or I can hear like feet on the concrete floor in the
or
shop.
above your room when we lived
or in the shop
in the
that's
apartment.
right next to the costume, like the women's costume room or dressing room, I should say. So it's like I know, or I could hear tools being moved around, and I'm the only one in the building.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. People know that this has happened to me. And it's happened to other people too who stayed late at night. And Scott decided to sneak upstairs the day before and start flickering the lights and making noises and hiding in the closets, because this is, like I said, old apartments. But like, say I walk into the girls' dressing room or the girls' costume room, and like there's like the little kitchenette has all the different shoes.
Yeah.
This closet has uniforms. Like, it still looks like an apartment just filled with clothes.
Right.
So he'll hide in a closet, peek out, and then like flip the light switch. But he's the type of person that like, you're like, Scott, if that's you, I swear to God. Then he pops and goes, ha ha.
Yeah.
So he likes to jump out and go, ah. Like, he knows when to stop the prank. So I'm like, so he pranked me a couple days before, and I was pissed off. I was like, that motherfucker. Because he knows I'm super, like, you know,
shit's scary.
Shit gets scary. And so I was like walking past this room after locking up, because I'm like, I'm done. And she's still digging in the men's room looking for boots. And I walk by, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this blouse that I missed. I'm like, oh, how did I miss that? So I walk across the little kitchen into the living room area where we keep all of our blouses and skirts. And as soon as I touch this blouse, like grab it, to the left of me is the bedroom where we keep ball gowns and children's clothing and like the little old bathroom that's in there. And I hear, it couldn't have been more than a couple feet away from me, clear as day. Hold on. And it's such a basic bitch ghost thing to say, by the way, was clear as day. It was probably this loud, help me. And I turn around thinking, it's Scott. So I'm like, God damn it, Scott, not again. And I whip around, but he's, like I said, the type to just be standing there waiting for you to go, ah. No one's there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh
fuck.
And I literally said, nope, sorry, I can't help you. And I walked out. I ran out of there screaming, Sarah, which was my assistant in the men's room. I ran down the hallway. I'm like, Sarah, grab your shit. We're leaving. And this woman is a mechanical engineer. Like, she's getting her master's right now. She's a rocket scientist, basically.
Yeah.
She worked at, like, 3M or something, A-Guard, I don't remember what it was, but she's an engineer.
Yeah.
Incredibly smart, incredibly nerdy and funny, so whatever. And I'm like, Sarah, get your shit, we're leaving. And she's like, what happened? I'm like, a ghost spoke to me, we're leaving. And then she's like, what? I'm like, it's this basic bitch ghost just said, help me, we are not here to do that. I'm leaving with or without you. And I started running away, and she grabbed me and she's like, well, there has to be an explanation. I'm like, no, I heard a voice. This isn't a flickering light, okay, lady? And I'm like, I gave her the keys. I'm like, you lock up the rest of these rooms. And I ran down these huge, there has to be like 30, 40 stairs.
There's a lot of fucking stairs.
And just, I was jumping them. Because here's the funny thing. When Scott had pranked me, I was up there with Paul.
Yeah.
Finding a suit for him. And fucking Scott. He was, because we were in the men's room, and he was in the women's room taking coat hangers and flinging them down the hallway to make choo-choo noises while we were in the men's room and flickering the hallway light. And Paul's the kind of guy like, oh, Ghost is talking to me. Let's have a conversation. How's it going, Ghost? I'm like, fuck you. Don't talk to Ghost.
I would love to have him on. He's got some wicked ghost stories.
So basically, I knew it had to be someone pranking me from the women's room, but on the off chance it was a ghost, I said, here's your fucking suit. I locked up the men's room and I ran away. And I got a feeling, because like I said, energies, I could feel that there was someone in the girls' room. So as I ran by, I got even faster, and Paul's running behind me going, Katie, it's okay. And he's laughing because I'm like, he's like, it's a real ghost. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's fucking Scott, but in case it isn't. Yeah. And I literally left Paul for dead. I pushed
He would do fine. He'd be fine. I
pushed him out of my way and ran and leaped down those stairs again, slammed the door and walked in. And people, because it's on top of this theater, people are in the lobby. They heard me run down these stairs and slam the door. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, I'm pretty sure a ghost or Scott's fucking with me, and I left Paul for dead. And no shit, he came in, he's like, you just left me. I'm like,
every man for himself.
If you ever want to survive something, you gotta run faster than the person next to you. Sorry, Paul, you're a big dude, you can handle it yourself. I am a tiny easily scared little girl. Leave me alone. And then Scott came down going, ah. I'm like, you asshole. So the same thing happened. I leave people for dead. Sorry.
If you want to survive, sometimes you gotta leave people for dead.
2 of my scary stories.
Thank you again for listening to My Neighbor's Hot Tub. This is the second episode, and it will actually be a 2-part episode, so stay tuned next week for the second part of my interview and talk with Katy.